Okay, good evening. I'm going to continue the narrative of Do Ask, Do Tell, Chapter 1, the show, continuing in Chapter 1 with Episode 1, the sub-episode B, because I'm breaking it up into parts. I just want to make a little remark about the summer to start with. My parents had wanted to have me in St. Louis on my 18th birthday, or my father did, for an important dinner with the family in Clayton, Missouri. So we actually made 2 trips to the Midwest, and a lot was going on that summer. We made 1 trip back to Washington to go to a baseball game we had tickets for after a rainout on July the 7th, I think. And I just wanted to give a little background. The Washington Senators, remember, had not been very good. In 1960, they were actually pretty good, but this team was moved to Minnesota, and there was a new team which was not very, which was starting over, playing in the old Griffith Stadium. The trigonometry teacher I had in high school was a rabid baseball fan. She let us listen on opening day. The Nats lost that game, and they actually did fairly well up until graduation. At one point, they were playing 500 ball, and then they lost all 4 games in Boston one weekend in July when I was watching it at a church party. They blew a 7-run lead in the bottom of the 9th, and they were kind of done for the season. So I remember that. So baseball had a way of covering else of something that was going on. I was seeing this friend Michael, as I mentioned, who first had doubts. He was not part of Science Honor Society. He had some doubts as to whether he wanted to be my friend or not, but he decided to be. And we played a lot of ping pong on an undersized table, and we played chess, and we played a lot of tennis. And there came a time in the middle of August when I went over to his house where I felt aroused. I'll just say that. And you know where this is heading, but I think he noticed it, but nothing really happened. And he drove me back. I didn't really drive. We drove back home, and it was in the evening, and we came in the house, and my parents were watching the baseball game, which they normally didn't. But the Senators won a game the minute we walked in the room. Somebody hit a ground ball, and they were in the bottom of the 9th. They were down 2-1. Somebody hit a ground ball, and the team for the Los Angeles Angels threw the ball away, and an error, and the Senators won the game 3-2. And that took all the tension out of the air. And so everything seemed normal, and baseball kind of was a cover for something else going on. But anyway, I actually did drive some more. We went on down to Williamsburg, and I moved into the dorm on September the 10th. Me and my father was there. I got there 40 minutes before the roommate, whom we'll call Sydney, got there, and the semester kind of started relatively regularly. We had a week of orientation. I didn't place an advanced placement English and everything, but everything else seemed hunky-dory. And classes started on September the 18th, which was a Monday. Remember, September the 11th was the orientation. It's 50 years before 9/11. That's interesting. But we had to write a 1-paragraph theme to turn in next Wednesday, a grade that didn't count. He wrote about his clock radio, and I wrote about the typewriter calculator that I had. But then we had to write a real theme and turn it in the following Monday. And so I wrote about friendship. What is friendship? And I was kind of sincere and enthusiastic in this theme. And I got an A- on it. But I think the tone of it kind of frightened the roommate. We were allowed to read each other's themes. The honor code didn't matter if we did that as long as we wrote about something different. And so he was a little bit perturbed about me at first. And then during the week, on Sunday night, the dorm counselor popped in the dorm room and told us that we were supposed to go to a hazing ceremony the following Friday, which would be September 29th, in the basement of some dorm building, what they called the tribunals. And the rumor was that they would pick one boy and shave his legs in front of everybody else. And I thought of that as time as very insulting, as essentially intended to make you feel submissive or feminine. Now, I know that fits into today's debate. So I skipped out on it. I didn't go. So that was one thing. And then there was kind of the issue. We were in Brown Hall. That was the dorm. I was on the second floor. Some of my shirts were kind of brightly colored, and the roommate made a comment that only homosexuals wear brightly colored shirts. Well, my father wore them all the time because in his Czech heritage that was quite common and quite acceptable to do. And so there was some tension between us. In the meantime, I met another friend. So this is sort of, who was very much into music, who claimed to be a composer himself, and we spent some time playing some of my music in a room in the music hall that we could reserve. And he liked Mozart. He sung a Mozart aria, I think from the Magic Flute, the Papa Gone aria, I think. But I showed him my own compositions, you know, and he kind of liked that. So I was making somewhere in my personal goals to do something with my music, to make other friends, and to be a good student. I was getting good grades, and I was getting the highest grade in the class and so forth. I got straight A's at midterm. And then, well, in late October, the issue of the tribunals came up again. When we rented a record, borrowed some records to play, and in the line, somebody mentioned the subject of the tribunals. Somebody whose legs had actually been shaved mentioned it. It was a very strange conversation, like in the student union. This was late October. And then there were other couple other program problems. A football player who was bandaged and his legs were shaved harassed me in the cafeteria one time. I don't know why, and then I watched a football player getting treated when I went to the infirmary for a sore throat the last weekend of October, and they shaved him. So it was a real strange thing going on. And I got over the sore throat. The doctor came and gave some penicillin and so forth. But then in November, things got, we watched, a movie came to town, Splendor in the Grass, which was about mental illness in a young person, remember, in Kansas. And I saw it, and Sydney saw it at different times, and things seemed to get better for a while after that movie, but then they deteriorated again. And Sydney kept on saying that I was the threat, that I could take on some super strength, or would attack him in my sleep or something, saying really strange things. But anyway, Thanksgiving came. We didn't have a break. My parents came and took me and John to dinner. We went out to Jamestown for the afternoon. And then my parents went on to Charlotte. And on Friday afternoon, I went to class as usual and went to physics recitation, came back, and then found a note on the door to report to the dean. And this is where I will go on to the next session.